I'm Bruce Karasik, co-founder of the Jewish Republican Alliance. We're so happy to have Kurt Schlichter here with us today. We'll be speaking with Kurt in just a few minutes, but first, what I saw in the halls of Congress this week was awful, and the Democrats should be ashamed of themselves for their behavior. The House Democrats called Attorney General Bill Barr to testify before the House Judiciary Committee, and I've never seen a more ridiculous group of people than the Democrats on this committee. I'm not even quite sure why they asked him to testify, because they didn't give him a chance to answer any of the questions. So what I did was I watched an avalanche of unsupported accusations launched at Attorney General Barr, and all they said when he started to answer a question was, "I'm reclaiming my time, I'm reclaiming my time." In other words, shut up, I'm in charge. We don't want to hear your answers. You're guilty. The president's guilty. No need for you to say anything. It was like something you'd see out of the old Soviet Union or Iran or North Korea. Fascists all just in lockstep like trained seals. So Bill Barr comes on and says the rioters came equipped for fighting. And they had slingshots and tasers and hammers and saws and knives and rifles, explosive devices. Officers have been blinded by their lasers, and the Portland police said that the protesters tossed a Molotov cocktail of some kind or explosive device that was so powerful that the explosion was heard and felt like more than a block away as it burst into a fireball. And so I thought Barr was really amazing when he said what makes him concerned for the country is that for the first time that in his memory, leaders of one of the great parties or political parties, the Democratic Party, are not even coming out and condemning mob violence and the attack on federal courts. So it appears to me that the Democrats are okay with this and the violence and the destruction. They seem not to be having any problem with it. They don't speak out against it, and they're not willing to stop it. And so what's bad for America now is good for the Democrats, but the American people are watching. The mainstream media continues to be activists for the Democrat Party. At a White House press conference this week, Kayleigh McEnany was asked a question from a reporter who should have known the answer to this question, but he asked it anyway with an attitude, and he says, "Where in the Constitution does the president derive the authority to send federal law enforcement officers to the streets of American cities against the will of elected officials in those cities?" He should have known the answer to this question, but she did. Unfortunately, Kayleigh McEnany said the exact code of 40 U.S. 1315 and read the code to him and just kind of embarrassed this reporter, which I was happy to see. She's amazing. But she said, you know, this fits the description. When you see a federal courthouse under attack, on fire, and commercial fireworks being lit, I think that pretty much falls within 40 U.S. Code 1315. And I think she's really amazing. But Joe Biden did not fail to disappoint us again this week when he said, in referring to the 2020 census, which is now 2 censuses ago, and this is the alternative choice to President Trump. So I think as the American people get to know him better, things are going to change. We see a Michigan high school a Michigan high school teacher being fired for tweeting Trump is our president. Dr. Simone Gold was fired from 2 hospitals for coming out and giving her medical opinion on hydroxychloroquine. It's a battle, my friends. The JRA will continue to unite and energize conservatives to take action on behalf of America and Israel. And the JRA is going to keep on fighting and giving you the verbal ammunition you need to fight with us. And so now I'd like to introduce fellow co-founder Mitch Silberman. Mitch?
Hello, JRA community. It is always so great when we are together. There's a famous quote attributed to Mark Twain that says, "A lie makes its way halfway across the world while the truth is putting its shoes on." That has never been more accurate than today. We are literally bathing in left-wing lies promulgated by the media and today's Democratic Party, which are virtually indistinguishable. Now, these lies are not just insidious, they're actually an existential threat to our republic. We could spend hours deconstructing the horrible lies that they keep promoting, so I'm just going to talk over a few of them with you. How about this lie? the mostly peaceful protesters in Portland and other major cities. The truth, they're destroying buildings, attacking police officers, harming individuals and businesses. How do we know this? Video, camera. There is so much proof, but the media won't show it because it doesn't comport with their worldview. How about this lie? President Trump is anti-Semitic. The truth, there has never been a more pro-Israel or pro-Jewish president in history than Donald J. Trump. How do we know this? Well, he moved the embassy to Jerusalem like he promised. He also acknowledged Jerusalem as the eternal capital of Israel. How about giving sovereignty over the Golan Heights and getting us out of the disastrous Iran deal? And by the way, his son-in-law is Jewish. His daughter converted to Judaism. His grandchildren are Jewish. How about this lie? Hydroxychloroquine is dangerous or doesn't work. The truth, it is saving people's lives when used properly and with the proper protocols at the right time. How do we know this? There is ample proof and studies being done. As Bruce mentioned, JRA member Dr. Simone Gold is heroically fighting to save people's lives by showing the science behind it. So what can you do about all these lies? Well, if you're equipped to write articles or publicly speak or create videos, that's great. But some of us are not equipped to do those things. But here's how you can still make a huge difference. And I'll give you this analogy. Stephanie and I have 3 children, Aaron, Lila, and Eli. When Aaron was in high school, he was a varsity wrestler, league champion, and he's a second-degree black belt in a form of mixed martial arts. So if he and I were out and about and trouble was brewing, he is better equipped than I am to kick their rear ends. He just is, and that's great. I'm glad to have him on my side. You have on your side some amazing people that know the truth, do the research, and expose the truth. Like who? Well, how about some former JRA speakers like Dennis Prager, Larry Elder, Charlie Kirk, Barack Lurie, Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, and today Kurt Schlichter. They do amazing work. So it is incumbent upon you to share their articles, buy their books, forward their videos, because we have a country to save, as Larry likes to say. This is how you can make a difference. They say the truth will set you free, but only if you know about it. We need to set people free and expose the truth. I'm going to leave you with a great quote from a successful businessman, Art Williams, who said, "I'm not telling you it's going to be easy. I'm telling you it's going to be worth it." And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce Kurt Schlichter. I have been listening to him for years on radio, reading his columns, his books. He is amazing. Kurt was personally recruited to write conservative commentary by Andrew Breitbart. He's a named partner at a growing LA trial lawyer, a retired Army infantry colonel with a master's in strategic studies from the United States Army War College, and a former stand-up comic. His latest book is The 21 Biggest Lies About Donald Trump and You. Kurt, welcome.
Hey, thank you very much, Mitch. I really appreciate it. I'm glad to be here.
Kurt, we're really happy to have you here. I got a question for you. I spoke a little about this in my opening remarks, but what is your take on the House Judiciary hearings this week? And do you agree with that the White House has the presidential authority to send in federal troops? And what else can he do?
Well, that's 2 questions. Let me talk about the Bill Barr hearing. Well, it wasn't really a hearing, was it? It was sort of a yelling, a lecturing, a hectoring, a badgering, a pestering, and a disgrace. I don't know what I admire most about Bill Barr. Is it his intellect? Is it his integrity? Or it is his unyielding patience with these half-wits, clowns, and buffoons? I mean, reclaiming my time has become the hanging chad of the 2020 election. It's a punchline. And you look at these people, and look, I'm a trial lawyer. I go stand in front of 12 people who couldn't figure out a way to get out of jury duty, and I present them arguments based on facts and evidence. And, you know, you try not to look like an idiot. I don't know if I always succeed. I've lost some cases. It's because I've tried a lot of cases. But you try not to look like an idiot. And I'm watching these guys, and I'm thinking, do you imagine that you're sympathetic? You're talking over the guy. You're giving him complex questions, compound questions. And immediately, anybody watching it's going to say, well, you know, maybe I don't like this Barr guy. Maybe I'm kind of a Democrat, but this is kind of unfair to me. You ought to let him talk. You know, you said pretty horrible things about him. I'd like to hear his side. because Americans are a naturally fair and just people, and they believe that everybody should have a chance to be heard, generally. Now, the leftists don't, and that's becoming a problem. But most Americans are like that. So I'm a little bit baffled is why they thought this was a good idea. And the only reason I can come up with is that they are assuming that most of America is asleep and they are only playing to their own crowd. And I think, and they may be onto something. And the way I know they may be onto something is something that Donald Trump is not doing, a dog that is not barking, so to speak. And Donald Trump is not laying into Joe Biden for his manifest cognitive decline. So that's a politically correct way of saying, dude is senile. I mean, he's 300 years old. What's up with this guy? It's obvious. Everybody's got, the old Uncle Earl who, you keep him upstairs. He comes down to Thanksgiving, he eats the centerpiece. He's a mess, okay? Donald Trump is holding back. And why is Donald Trump holding back? Because Donald Trump understands that most people who, unlike us, don't swim in the cesspool of politics every day. We do our duty, but it's not always fun. But most people are trying to live their lives. They're trying to be with their family. They're active in their temple or their church, their community, and they're trying to raise their kids. They're trying to figure out how to teach their kids when the teachers' unions won't do it. They're not paying attention to the election until sometime in September. And I think that's when they're going to hit. So I think the Democrats are counting on people not watching till September, but I think Donald Trump is too. And I think that's why he's holding back on letting Joe Biden have it and showing that this is not the old go have a beer with Joe. So I've answered one of your two questions. I could go to the other if you'd like.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have a personal interest in this whole military law enforcement forces in civilian operations because I did it. I was a lieutenant with the 3rd Battalion, 160th Infantry out of Inglewood in the United States Army during the Los Angeles riots. I was on the streets for 3 weeks, federalized for 14 days. I saw more action in the riots than I did at Desert Storm or deployed to Kosovo. So, and it was a very scary time, very different scenario. The president absolutely has the right to use federal law enforcement officers to enforce federal law and to protect federal property. That's just, I knew that before I went to law school. It's not hard. The federal government gets to enforce federal laws. It doesn't enforce basic state laws. For instance, a federal cop on a regular highway is not going to pull you over for speeding. But, if you're in a national park, then a federal forest ranger may pull you over for speeding. So the feds have their own area, and these insurgents are intruding into that. Now, I think Donald Trump has handled this very well because this whole thing is not what I call a kinetic operation. Well, actually, it's what the military calls a kinetic operations. I'm a graduate of the Army War College, retired a full colonel. A kinetic operation is one that uses force, uses violence. You achieve your effect by destroying your opponent. And to a large extent, the Los Angeles riots were a kinetic operation. We sent guys out to grab these dudes and scare them off because they were doing widespread looting, widespread killing. It was mostly criminal. It wasn't political. This is very different. This is an information operation. With an information operation, you leverage propaganda, essentially, visuals, images, words, to achieve your effect. You make the other person think something and thereby do something. The purpose of all this, the purpose of the riots in Portland, the purpose of riots in Seattle, the purpose of centering around statues is to obtain that visual, to give the impression that things are out of control, to demoralize people, to make them afraid, to make us think, my gosh, we better accept the unspoken agreement that we elect Joe Biden and all this ends, much like COVID-19 will end on November 4th. It's not a kinetic operation because in a kinetic operation, you stand on ground, right? It's a guy with a rifle and he's in boots and he's on a place and he controls it. What do the bad guys control here? A few hundred square yards around the Hatfield Federal Courthouse in Portland, a few hundred square yards around a few statues, and the rest of the United States is at peace. Look at here. I'm in the South Bay of Los Angeles. Beautiful day. Nothing happening. You might hear a few dogs bark, a few birds sing, but you won't hear any riots or gunfire. Probably the same for you. It's to give the illusion that things are out of control and to draw Donald Trump into making an error by overreacting. Classic insurgent technique. You gain sympathy for the insurgents by causing the counterinsurgents to overreact. Here's an example. We know, tragically, horrifyingly, there have been 3, 4, 5, 6 times in the last month in Chicago when 4 more people were shot. But we can't name their names. We can't give any details of it. We just know it happens every weekend in Chicago. Contrast that. 50 years ago this year, on a second-tier college in Ohio, 4 college students were killed. And we all know that was Kent State. That's the difference. That's what they want. They want another Kent State. They want something you know about that will turn you against Trump. He did not fall into their trap. And a lot of us conservatives were, hey, he's not doing anything. He's not doing anything. Let's go back to Military 101. You don't walk into an ambush. Not making a mistake is doing something. The enemy never presents you with good choices. There's not good choice A and then bad choice, bad choice, bad choice. It's bad choice, worst choice. Enemy gets a vote. They put us in a position where Donald Trump risked looking like he wasn't reacting, and some people took him up on that. But in fact, I think he's handled this masterfully, and I think people are coming around thinking this is not good. And you can tell that too. Remember the Alinsky rule. After I think it's number 4. After a while, every technique becomes a drag. The violence has decreased. It wouldn't decrease if it was still succeeding.
Kurt, that's truly amazing. You have a term that I really am fond of that I would love you to explain to our audience, what you call militant normals. Can you talk to them about what that means?
Sure. Militant normals are regular, everyday Americans. And that was the title of my previous book before this one. Hold on. My marketing people make me hold it up every single time. If they don't, they won't let my family be released. So militant normals are the people who, built this country. They feed it. They fuel it. They defend it. The Democrats would like the image to be, just a regular guy, be some guy in a John Deere hat. And it does include the guy in the John Deere hat who's making our food for us, who's getting the gas out. But it includes everybody who believes in America, who just wants to do his own thing, for lack of a better word, who wants to live his life on his own terms, doesn't necessarily want to run institutions, doesn't need to be a congressman, doesn't even need to have a radio show, just wants to live his life, be with his family, serve his God, do the right thing, and be left alone in peace and freedom and prosperity. That's a normal American, and they don't swim in the sea of politics that we do until things get ugly, until they're forced to. And then we've seen them react, and we saw them react with the silent majority in 1972 and 68. We saw them with the Tea Party in 2009. We saw them in 2016 with Donald Trump. I believe we will see them rise again in 2020 to say, hell no, you do not get my country, and I am not going to be a serf. I am an American.
Love it.
One of the things, Kurt, that is really bothering me is we're seeing this a lot. We're seeing people who disagree with the mob, who have an alternative opinion that doesn't fit with the people who are just trying to squelch free speech, being fired, losing their jobs, being attacked in their homes. I know Breitbart has documented 600-700 cases of people being attacked for having a different opinion. And now we see people who are teachers, who are doctors being fired. What can we do from a legal perspective, and what can we do as a nation to stop that?
Well, that's a great question. And right now, people are seeing this, and they're a little confused because this is so out of the norm of American society. This is something new. And that's why we don't have a coherent reaction to it. But we do have tools. First of all, the law. you can sue. In certain states, for instance, I'm a lawyer in California. I'm not your lawyer. Don't take my legal advice. But if you are fired for your political opinions, you have a cause of action, just like you were fired for your religion or a handicap or being a veteran or being black. You have, in many states, not all of them, but in many states, you have an outright direct law protecting you. There are ways to use federal civil rights laws that haven't been fully explored because, again, this is a new phenomenon. This didn't used to happen. The closest is they would say McCarthyism. Remember when McCarthyism was wrong? Wasn't that adorable? That was so cute how they didn't like blacklists. Now they like the blacklists. In fact, a lot of these laws, including in California, was a reaction to McCarthyism. It was liberals putting it in place. So it's like twice as much fun to use against them. But we also need federal law. These are, traditionally, civil rights were thought of as something that the government infringes on. But William F. Buckley was a very bright guy. And 50 years ago, he said, wait a minute. I don't want my rights squelched. I'm paraphrasing because he's much more eloquent than I could ever be. But I don't, it doesn't make any difference to him whether it's the government or General Motors squashing my rights. I don't want my rights squashed, to paraphrase. I think that we are going to need to re-examine our concept of civil rights because in an intertwined society of technology and business, there's a very real possibility, and they want to use it to punish people using, companies to demand conformity. Imagine, for instance, MasterCard refusing to serve any Republicans or any business that is owned by a Republican. That has a real effect, and more people would be oppressed than if they went out and arrested a bunch of people. Okay, we're going to need to stop that, and I can see law coming down the road. And old school conservatives say, well, it's a private company. Yeah, it's also 2020, and the whole it's a private company thing never really took into account that they would be used by political forces to punish political enemies. When you break that norm, there's no more norm. Here's what, I keep hearing a lot about conservative principles. And I've been a conservative all my life. I'm 55 years old. I was a conservative watching the Vietnam War on TV. Okay? Here's my feeling about conservative principles. If you have a conservative principle that results in me and other Americans becoming less free, that's a pretty crappy principle, and I'm not going to do it. I am not one of the Weekly Standard, David French, Jonah Goldberg surrender caucus. All right? I'm not a cruise shilling hack from Conservative Incorporated. Ahoy. I'm here because this matters to me, not because I need a job at the Washington, D.C. Eagle Forum for Families and Freedom and Liberty and forums and milking donors. That's one of the reasons they hate me. If you watch me on Twitter, I got in a big fight with the NRCC the other day. I pointed out that their idiotic texts were insulting and stupid and beneath us, and to stop it. And they got mad at me. They called me a Karen, which Tucker Carlson weighed in and said, why are you calling Kurt Schlichter an ethnic slur? Which I thought was hilarious. And they did change because a lot of conservatives got in on it. But like you guys, I'm not a Washington guy. I'm a volunteer. You're a volunteer. We're the outsiders, and they're tired of us getting all up in their business. But we need to, because they've been doing a bad job. If you look at the professional conservatives for the last 20 years, until Donald Trump came along, what the hell did they conserve? Nothing. They just lost like gentlemen. I am not a loser. And if not being a gentleman is what it takes to win, let's go. They didn't teach me to retreat at Fort Benning. There wasn't a class at Loyola Law School in losing a case. I'm here to win. I'm here for freedom. You guys are here. You guys are here for freedom. And frankly, we ought to be listening to you guys because the Jewish Republican Alliance is a voice of people who understand in their bones what happens when tyranny reigns in a way no one else can. And that's why you guys are such an important voice. And we don't give an inch on freedom. We don't give an inch on what's right. And we support the United States and we support Israel 150%.
Wow, Kurt, bravo. This is just fantastic. You're on fire today. I love it. I love your
call me the butcher because I'm handing out red meat.
Good. You're not just a patriot, but you're a fighter, which leads me to my next question. Our group is very pro-Israel, very pro-American, tends to be very pro-Trump, and I'm very proud to say that. Can you explain to our JRA community why you think Donald Trump has a great chance of winning this November?
I'd love to. And first, let's look at why he might not. I'm a United States Army officer. When I commanded a battalion, when I was deputy commander, acting commander of a brigade, I always wanted, the first guy I heard from was our S2, our intelligence officer. He told us enemy capabilities, enemy courses of action. So we understood what they were after before we figured out what we were doing. So let's look at that. And I talk about it in the book. I'll hold it up again. There you go. You always want to fight your toughest enemy. You don't want to fight your weakest one. Like in Desert Storm, we were there to fight the Republican Guard, who were highly trained professional soldiers with state-of-the-art Soviet equipment who mastered Soviet tactics and understood their own territory so they could maximize the defense. And in fact, I'll tell you what I can tell you, we didn't expect to get very far without taking a lot of casualties. They were planned into the plan. I was supposed to be one of them. Turned out what we thought were a bunch of farmers who'd been grabbed off the out of the fields, handed an old AK-47, said, run this tank, which was broken down. They didn't know Soviet tactics. They didn't even know their own territory and couldn't operate at night. We went through them like a hot knife through butter. They went so fast, I didn't even get pulled forward. I stayed in northern Saudi Arabia at 7th Corps headquarters the whole war. Thank goodness, because that meant we lost fewer of our guys and won that much quicker. The point here is I'm always looking to fight the strongest enemy. So who's the strongest enemy? Well, our enemy is Joe Biden? Really? What about Joe Biden would give you the impression that a lot of people have that he's a shoo-in to win? Well, it can't be his demeanor. The guy is losing it. It can't be his politics. He's regurgitating every commie trope and scheme that somehow escaped from a faculty lounge. I mean, it's insane. It's not defund the police, raise your taxes. Who's for that? Who doesn't have who's not in a sociology seminar at Goucher College? I mean, it's ridiculous. So that can't be it. Dissatisfaction with Trump? Well, are people really blaming him for the Chinese coronavirus? He got us down to 3.5% unemployment. And the biggest test is my personal test, which is, and I've done a lot of media for the book. I know a lot of people who did not vote for Trump before, but they're voting for him now. They're saying, my gosh, Donald Trump, I don't like his tweets. But I can't let these lunatics take power. God, they'll expand the Supreme Court. We'll have mandatory pronoun laws. It'll be incredibly insane. I have met 0 people individually who said, I voted for Trump in 2016, but 2 Supreme Court justices, rebuilding our military, moving the embassy in Israel to Israel's actual and eternal capital. Yeah, I'm against all that. I want Biden to undo that. I've never met anybody who said that, not one. I've heard people go, well, I know this guy secondhand who might be squishy, but really, I haven't seen anything. The only thing we've seen are polls. And the polls are bad. Though they are tightening, polls are bad if you believe the polls. My question is, why would you? There's history. They were a disaster in 2016. They were just completely wrong. And they're soft peddling that now. They're like, oh, well, the polls showed it closer than people remember. No, I remember. I was awake. Also, the media lies. I mean, take the Mount Rushmore speech, which was a beautiful speech that reaffirmed the greatness of America and how we're blessed by the Lord and how it's a place where everybody can be free, but we need law and order and we need we need to re-embrace these principles of the founders. I mean, just a wonderful speech, maybe his best speech yet. And if you look at the mainstream media, it was dark and divisive. Talked about Confederates. Well, with 2 taps on my little phone here, I can find the text of that speech, and you won't find dark, divisive, or a single mention of Confederates. If they will lie about something that's so easy to check, they will lie about something that, at the best of times, is kind of opaque and obscure. A poll. Polls are hard to read anyway. And now, I want to be clear. Am I saying that they would actively lie to hurt Donald Trump's chances by demoralizing us? Yes, I'm saying that exactly. I'm totally saying that. In 2016, if I had said that, if somebody said it to me, I'd have taken him to a haberdasher for a tinfoil hat fitting, because that sounds like a crazy, crazy kind of conspiracy theory. Fast forward to 2020, the Russia-Trump thing, everything else we've seen, it doesn't seem so crazy before. When you have the New York Times pushing the lie that is the 1619 Project, not a project of journalism, but a project of anti-American Marxist propaganda, an outright lie, and they're not ashamed of it. I don't think it's a big switch to go, yeah, why don't we front him a few points in Pennsylvania? Maybe that'll get those John Deere guys not to come out and vote. So the last thing is, do I think they're shy Trumpers? Do I think there are people out there who won't admit it? Well, of course they won't admit it. I mean, first of all, on the polls, when the phone rings and you pick it up and you're like, yeah, no, it's cool. I don't mind. I like my dinner cold. That's fine. I'll talk to you. Who does that? Okay, we don't pick it up. Why, yes, I do support the racist, sexist guy who is literally Hitler. Yes, that is the guy I'm supporting. Come on. As you pointed out, it is dangerous to be known as a Trump supporter. So why would you tell a total stranger on the phone who's interrupting your supper? The answer is you wouldn't. And I talk to a lot of audiences, and very few people tell me, oh, I've been called, and even fewer say, oh, I picked up. So I just don't buy the polls, but the polls are the sole evidence that Joe Biden's winning. I just don't buy it. And I hope I'm not whistling past the graveyard. And I certainly don't think that means we go, oh, cool, now I don't have to do anything. No, I say we double down. Let's run up the score. Let's go get the House back. Let's get the Senate back. We can do it. Great candidates, including here in LA. Mike Garcia took the seat back from Thruple Girl. Remember that? That punchline. We got Sean Parnell back in Pennsylvania 17. He's one of my favorites. Army Ranger combat vet going up against Connor Lamb, one of those fake moderate Democrats who's not going to follow Pelosi and votes with Pelosi every single time. And there's a whole bunch others. You can find them on your own. But if you're like me, and I live in Ted Lieu's district, yeah. Well, hey, we got the sun, right? It's sunny here. I live in Ted Lieu's district. I don't even know who's running against him, but I can write a check to Mike. I can write a check to Sean, and so can you guys if you're in a crummy district. We'll get this one next time.
I've got a follow-up question to what we talked about. I'm not concerned with the polls. I'm more concerned with some of the shenanigans that I see about to happen. The cheat by mail, that I call it, where they're going to have mail-in ballots, the ballot harvesting, and it's all about turnout. And people lined up to elect President Trump last time. And a lot of these people that are protesting, they're never going to vote. But all bets are off if you have all these ballots flying all over the place and ballot harvesting in California where, oh, we just found 40,000 ballots. Oh my God, they're all Democrat ballots. How did that happen? And that changes not only the presidential election, but changes the House and the Senate elections. And if we lose all three, this country is in big trouble.
I would agree with you there. I think if we lose all three, the Democrats are so historically illiterate, so emotionally unstable, and so full of hatred, they will do something stupid. And all I can say is Dems are 0-1 in civil wars. I wouldn't push my luck. But about the ballots. On the presidential level, the mail-in ballot chaos is mostly going to be in states that are already blue, like California. So I'm not as worried about it for Trump as I could be. I am worried about it. It is a big concern, and we need to fight that in the courts as well as in public opinion. I am worried about it for House races, particularly in California. There's a huge ability to cheat. There are also some big problems for Democrats this year in turnout. First of all, I don't think they're excited by Biden. Who's excited by Biden except gerontologists? You know, the guys from Geritol are probably thrilled. Bob Dole's thrilled because he seems vital and centered, you know, standing by him. By the way, he turned 97, great American hero. And whoever he picks as his vice president, with the narrow demographic that he picked, I just don't see any candidate that's going to really excite anybody who's not a card-carrying member of the Communist Party. I mean, Stacey Abrams? Really? Well, first of all, she doesn't want to give up the governorship of Georgia to do that. So, you know. But in any case, I don't think a lot of people are coming out. I think there's another factor that's kind of funny, especially in some of the California districts in Orange County. What they would do is they would go and activate college students. That was one of their big things. Go and get the college students activated and get them to vote, right? Because they're all right there gathered up, and you can get a bunch of them. And, you know, a lot of guys, I actually read an article today. One of the things young men are doing to score with liberal girls is going, oh, yeah, I'm a total Democrat. I'm woke. And, of course, you know, once he's achieved his goal, it's like, ha ha, Trump 2020. But, you know, there's a lot of pressure for these guys. So colleges are a great place where you got a bunch of people in, you register them there. Well, there's no schools this year. That's going to totally screw up their plans. No UC Irvine, you know, no UCL, none of these schools. So that's a problem. I think what we have to do is what my friend Hugh Hewitt said, and it's, you know, win too big to quit or to cheat. Win by too much to cheat.
Can the Supreme Court stop this, Kurt? Can the Supreme Court do an emergency vote to stop these mail-in ballots?
Yes, that's going to require lawsuits going up. And look, the Republicans are aware of this. They're not sitting back, and we're going to see litigation where appropriate, and hopefully it'll be successful.
So, Kurt, I have one last question for you before we get to. There's a lot of questions from the audience. What do you wish today's youth understood about the military? You know, thank you for your service. And
I was a colonel. I didn't do anything.
No, but what would you tell today's youth about the military? Because they're obviously being poisoned against it.
I have a lot of concerns about the senior leadership of the military right now. A lot, and I could do another hour on that. And I am not popular with a bunch of those retired hack generals who go on CNN. They do not like me because I'm not on the team. I'm on America's team, not team pad the payroll. That said, our young soldiers are fantastic. The greatest honor in my life was leading American soldiers. They are endlessly innovative, endlessly brave, endlessly smart. They are warriors with character. They are, I cannot say enough good about our people. I strongly recommend to anybody who physically can't, because most people physically can't these days. Only about 30% of people qualify for the military, which I think is actually a little too tough, because I'd like to see more people get that opportunity. I think if you can do it, take a few years, take 3 years, do something different. I came out of UC San Diego. I could have gone to law school. I could have been the second assistant to the guy who runs the Xerox at some big corporation, or I could have gone into as a private, and then officer candidate school, and then over to Germany and into war. And that's what I did. It changed my life, made me who I am. There are plenty, you know, here's the secret. 70% of the time being in the military sucks. It's hard and it's cold or it's hot. and it's tiring and it's miserable. That's why only a few people do it. But the other, but that part where you're serving your country and you know you're doing something and you're actually there having the opportunity to watch history. When I was at Seven Corps, Maine, I heard radio calls I read about in books later. And I was part of the United States military at its peak of power, the most powerful military force in human history, and I was there in the command post. I mean, holy cow. So I strongly advocate if you can do it, and if you want to, and if you want to make that commitment, because it's a big commitment, and you may end up in a box, and that's just the way it works out, then do it.
Thank you.
Kurt, we got a question from the audience. Our friend Eric G. Is John Durham still alive? Will his report come out before the 2050 elections? Will anyone get indicted?
I have no idea. I'm going to go with pessimism. First of all, if Biden gets elected, forget it. They will toss that on the ash heap of history. It will come out when it comes out. It's very important for Barr and I think Durham to maintain the appearance of normality, because they know they'll be attacked no matter what. And it's always difficult when other people are changing the rules and you're playing by the old rules. They're still trying to be gentlemen. And maybe that will work out, maybe it won't. But I think at the end of the day, we're not going to look to the criminal courts for justice here. We're just going to have to go take back our own country.
Kurt, we have a really important question from Lee A. He said his son's an LAPD officer. There's obviously great disappointment in the leadership, the mayor, the city council. What do you recommend they do to protect themselves, stop the lunacy, help make the police respected by the appropriate criminals veered? Just the whole culture, and it's very dangerous. So if you'd speak to that, then we'd appreciate it.
I don't think the people of Los Angeles have a right to expect you to keep your part of the bargain when they aren't keeping yours. The bargain is you will do the dirty, hard, scary things to protect the people of Los Angeles, and in return, you will get the benefit of the doubt and you will get protected. So you don't have to, unless you go outright criminal, you're going to get the benefit of the doubt. Now, that's not saying criminals shouldn't be treated like criminals. We all know that, police can also be criminals. But there's a difference between being a criminal who's taking money from drug dealers and a guy who happens to get in a fight with some perp, and the only part that shows up on the evening news is the second half when the cop is kicking the crap out of the perp, and not the first part where the perp took a swing at him or pulled a knife on him. If you hear about the blue flu, you hear about police not responding to calls, police not putting themselves at risk. Well, what's the deal? I'm a big believer in one set of rules. One set of rules. I just want to know what they are. If the rule is you will do your job, but we will not protect you, then okay. Then it's very clear. I'm staying in my patrol car. The people of Los Angeles who have elected these folks have no moral right to expect people to put themselves at risks beyond what the police agreed to. And that includes getting thrown in jail for doing the tough things that are required to take bad people off the streets. My feeling is people only learn through pain. And when the people of Los Angeles get sick and tired of brutality, crime, and violence, they will elect people who will allow the police to do the police's job. And until they do that, they've made their decision. They have told the police what to do. The message is unequivocal. Do not get in violent confrontations with people, even if they're criminals doing crimes. Roger, you've told me what the rules are. I'm going to obey them.
We have a question from Lee regarding our current situation in sports and some of the double standards that's going on, how, people are, if they say the wrong thing, are forced to, apologize to everybody. I've been watching professional sports for over half a century, and I'm not watching now. I'm seeing LeBron James.
I've heard a lot of that.
I see LeBron James getting on one knee during the national anthem and putting his fist in the air and supporting Black Lives Matter, which is an anti-Semitic group.
Yes.
But it seems to have taken over not only our culture, but our sports now, our entertainment. And it's like a runaway train that cannot be stopped. What's your thoughts on that?
Well, it's one of the many institutions in society that's dying. These institutions are all fairly old and they're fairly exhausted and they haven't changed with the times. And now they are changing in a way that doesn't meet the audience's needs. And they're alienating their audience. They are, most institutions in our societies are run by fools. If I was, the head of professional basketball, I would say, okay, if you kneel, I'm throwing you out of the game. We're not doing politics. If you want to do politics on your own, go do it. You don't do it on our court. Why not? Because you don't. Because it's not this isn't the place for it. And the idea that, we all respect the flag and that's why we kneel during the national anthem. That's just a flat out lie. There's 100 other ways you can protest. They're doing it because they know it ticks us off. They want a reaction. Our reaction shouldn't be anger. It should just be resolution. I quit. You guys, you are not going to get to shove this in my face. It's my money, it's my time, it's my eyeballs, and I will put them on other things. And of course, lots of people are I was never a sports guy, but I got lots of friends who are very dead kids. I spent a lot of time watching sports. I mean, all day, say, don't even call them. They're not going to answer. They're doing sports. But now they're not. And they're finding out, there's other things I could be doing rather than watching, grown men run around in tights and pummel each other or hit balls. That's kind of the risk that you break the habit that you built over years with your audience. Bruce, you were watching sports by habit. That was what you did. It's Sunday, it's football, right? But once you don't, suddenly now you've discovered other things and maybe you don't miss it. Some people miss it and come back, but not everybody. And there's a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. I think it's a foolish decision. I think it's childish. And I think that our institutions, if they were run by actual adults, and that goes for everything from the media, like the New York Times letting a bunch of 20-some sociology majors dictate its editorial page, the military in some ways, embracing a lot of this identity garbage rather than, how to kill Chinese, communists. Things have got to change because the institutions are going to collapse. Sports are just one of them. And things will change.
Excellent. I feel the same way. I do enjoy sports, but I will not watch them disrespect my country or my flag. We have a great question, a speculative question that a lot of people wonder about from David R. Any possibility of the left pulling Biden out and putting in someone like Michelle Obama or pulling some kind of shenanigans?
That would, it's funny because there are Democrats who are no doubt thinking that. Okay, they're not blind. All right, they know this guy is, completely out of it. Doesn't know where he is, what he's doing. Half the time he's hunting for that lost slipper. Probably wandering through the basement in his robe most of the time, unless somebody dresses him up. They know he's a problem. And I think a lot of them would like to get rid of him. But the problem is, A, who's better? I mean, who Michelle Obama, you just pull her out of the blue. Well, he did win the primaries. Here's the other thing. And it's kind of a two-edged sword for him. They've pumped up the polls. How do you justify throwing him out if he's 9 points ahead? He's got that poll right here. He's 9 points ahead. Why should we get rid of him? It's what do the drug dealers say? Don't get high on your own supply. I kind of think they're kind of getting high on their own supply. They're kind of stuck.
We have a great question from JRA member Kim M. She said, great presentation. So if President Trump wins and we also keep the Senate, what do you think is going to happen in terms of riots and in regards to all the hysterics that could arise from another Trump victory? Other than some actors and actresses leaving the country, which I'm ready to hire a charter flight to send them out.
Adios, guys. See you, Alyssa Milano.
One-way ticket with a parachute.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Now, certainly we will get plenty of great YouTube videos of liberals crying. If you ever feel down, just go, Hillary campaign headquarters, election night 2016, and just watch them sob. Cheers me up. Nothing I like better. So we'll get some of those. Will there be riots and stuff? Will COVID continue? I don't know. I think it depends on whether they think it's to their advantage. Because remember, the Democrat Party wants COVID to continue, at least until the election. It wants the violence to continue at some level. It wants the sense of instability. Does it benefit them to do it after Trump gets elected? I don't know. I think they will. Now, they don't fully control these leftists. They're like riding a tiger. And you've noticed the people who are getting canceled are not conservatives. What are they going to do? Call my law firm and say, hey, Schlichter and Schoeneck, get rid of Schlichter. He likes Trump. It's probably not going to work so good. Works really good among liberals. It's the kind of center left, soft left guy, the old guys who are supposed to be like Joe Biden, right? If they don't go completely woke, they're vulnerable. And they're the ones who are losing as these guys try and take over the institutions that are already failing. But so they're not completely under control of Nancy Pelosi. And you saw, like in Seattle, when the mayor was, oh, it's a peaceful, wonderful, Chaz is a beautiful place of love, and it's like Gilligan's Island, and everybody's Mary Ann, and it's wonderful. And then they marched on her house. Next day, cops are in there, and it's stick time. As soon as they feel threatened, it's stick time, and they'll close it down to the extent they can.
Kurt, we have so many great questions. Our audience is loving you, my friend. You're rocking it.
I wish we could do this live.
Yeah. So we have a question from an anonymous attendee, and the question is, isn't the enemy the puppets controlling Biden? I mean, you mentioned it before. Biden he's definitely in cognitive decline.
Oh yeah. That's a great assessment.
Yeah.
You are dead on, Mitch. And Anonymous's question is absolutely right. Look, Biden is Pinocchio. There's a bunch of leftist Geppettos out there, and they're desperately hoping he becomes a real boy or a real president in January. Okay? Yes, it's these radicals who are kind of behind the scenes, the Eric Holders, a lot of old Obama people, a lot of Hillary people, and they definitely think they can use him as a vehicle to trick America into thinking you're electing a moderate, and then he governs like Hugo Chavez. Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
And one thing I forgot, I want to let you know and our audience know that we have posted the link to your newest book. It's in the chat section. Oh, look at that, Kurt, you have it.
Oh, wow, I've got it here. I've been trained well by marketing people.
Yeah.
I got a shot collar. Haven't mentioned in 10 minutes.
You want to talk about the book for a minute?
Guys, here's all I could say. If you like what if you like me talking, the book sounds like me talking. Okay, I mean, it's a fun book. It's not a death march, but it's informed by me being a trial lawyer and a war college graduate. And I was a stand-up comic for a while. So if you like that mix and you like what I've said here, this takes you a little further in depth. I like to think it's a lot of fun. I've been a conservative all my life. And while I respect a lot of the, intellectual conservative guys, even for a short period in my misspent youth, I subscribed to the Weekly Standard. But I think there's too many bow tie conservatives out there. And I think there's a place for them, but the place is in the back with the women and the baggage. I don't want any more conservative leaders who've never been in a fight. I want them to have lost a fight, and I want them to have won one, because I don't like gentlemen losers, but I like guys who can take a punch and get back up. So when I'm writing, whether at Town Hall or going on Fox or guest hosting for Hugh Hewitt, I try to bring a little edge that other folks maybe don't have, and that's in the book. It's not quite FCC compliant, but I think it's a lot of fun, and I think you'll enjoy it. The great Tony Katz is doing the audio book, which you can order now, and you can get it as of the 4th. So you can have Tony's mellifluous voice in your car as you go to work, if you're allowed to go to work. I'm proud of the book. I think it's a lot of fun, and I think it'll give you a lot of good information and good ways to look into things. So when you encounter that person who's kind of wavering, because I don't advocate arguing with hardcore leftists, all right? I'm a lawyer. I only argue with stupid people when I'm getting paid. But if you find somebody who's a good person and maybe doesn't have all the information and maybe is misguided, but is open to reason, open to discussion, if you look at this, it's going to give you some ammunition in a fun and interesting way to talk to that person, maybe bring them over to us, because that's what we got to do. We got to expand. What we're selling for the founders, the principles that we back are principles for every American. I don't care what color you are. I don't care what religion you are. I don't care about any of that nonsense. These principles were given to us by God. They are transcendent, and that's what we're fighting for. And I hope I can help you bring other people around to see it.
Well, Kurt, it's been an absolute joy to have you on. Thank you for coming on and having a conversation with the Jewish Republican Alliance and Mitch and myself. We really do appreciate it. And we'll send out this recording with a link to your new book so people can get it.
Well, it's been a great honor. You guys are a great organization. Thank you very much for having me. I appreciate you listening to me yammer.
It's been our pleasure. To everybody out there, this has been a really great day. We have coming up some exciting guests that are going to be coming up in the coming weeks. Next week, we're going to have some fun on August 7th with Diamond and Silk. Followed the following week, Charlie Kirk will come on. And then our good friend Larry Greenfield will be on August 21st. And then to cap off the month, senior editor of Breitbart, Joel Pollack, will be on to talk about what's going on with Breitbart. To everybody who wants to see this, we're going to be sending out the recording. You can also see it on our YouTube channel just by going to YouTube and searching Jewish Republican Alliance, and all our Zoom videos and everything will be there. You can go on our social media, our private and our public Facebook page, our Twitter, our Instagram. We're doing a lot of those things. And if anybody would like to know more about the Jewish Republican Alliance or become a member or make a donation of any amount, go to jewishrepublicanalliance.org. So until we meet again, everybody, wishing you a great weekend, Shabbat Shalom, and talk to you real soon. Bye.
Thank you, Kurt. Goodbye, everybody.